The biggest battle we will ever have to face is the battle between you and you. It's the battle of taking your mind to that limit and then breaking through. On the Mindful Experiment podcast, we will share concepts, universal laws, and interviewing individuals who have done just that, who have gone through the dark times and through those moments allowed their light to shine bright. I'm your host, Dr. Vic Manzo, and I want to thank you for listening to the podcast and taking this journey with me as we discover different avenues to break through those limits, expand your reality, and evolve into the person you desire to be. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Hey everyone, and welcome. This is Dr. Vic, and you are listening to the Mindful Experiment as we dive in each week, concepts, ideas, things that I've meditated on in my coaching programs, online and one-on-ones, group, things that come up as a theme I love to share. It's a way of like my own little experiment to see, are there other people going through some of the same things that I'm seeing and witnessing? So before we jump into this episode, I want to let you know right up front that my 5-week online Vision Quest course is coming out. We are releasing it this week. It'll be released out by March 4th. We're going to have early bird registration. This is one of my signature programs. It has created massive transformation in individuals' lives. It's 5 weeks. Very heavy duty, a lot of content, a lot of information. You get Q&As with me. I create an individual experience through a group setting, a lot of support, a lot of resources to truly help you create clarity in your vision, your soul's purpose, your legacy, whatever term you want to use. Doesn't matter, but the purpose is to give you clarity so that you can align to what it is you desire by utilizing universal principles, quantum physics, and other things to help you in that journey. So again, registration starts on March 4th. Check it out. There'll be a link in the show notes for you to go ahead and check it out, and so much more. Want to thank you guys for tuning in. In today's episode, I wanted to talk about something that I've been expressing quite some time now, and it's the difference between knowing and owning. Now, in society, we live in someone that is very information era. You know, you can Google pretty much almost anything, and you can find a ton of information on the internet. And that is great. That's awesome. There's podcasts, books, there's audio books. There's just so much wealth, vastness of information available to us. But what I have learned over time, and I've made these mistakes in order to learn from them, is that a lot of times people will go ahead and they read something and say, oh, I got it. I can move on now. And they go to the next book or the next podcast, and they continually do this. I continue to see it in the business world and self-help world and so forth about personal development and how they tell you you should read 60, 80 books a year. The top CEOs in America read anywhere from 60 to 80 books a year. And I always try to find that fascinating because I was that individual. I read for about a good 6 to 8 years, 60 to 80 books a year. The highest I ever did was 120 books in 1 year. And the thing is, I learned so much information. I mean, the information, I vastly in any subject I was learning: spirituality, marketing, business, self-help, personal growth, psychology, you name it. I was studying so much. But what I found interesting is the stuff that I learned, I wasn't applying much into my life. The stuff that I learned, I wasn't taking and making it me. I wasn't putting my energy imprint onto that stuff. I wasn't owning it, as I like to say. Because a lot of times, how many times you hear someone say, oh, I know that. Yep, I got that. Yep, I know this. But in true reality, when they're challenged, when they're stressed, they don't. I was that person too. I was that person that knew so much that I thought I knew a lot. And next thing you know, when I was challenged, when I was critiqued, I didn't have really solid ground. And of course, when I knew what happened, I get defensive and so forth. I'm human. Nowadays, it's a whole different ballgame. Actually, right now I'm studying someone, and I've been studying them for over 4 months. I read their books. I wrote down, took my notes, took what I'm going to implement in my life. When I read their book, I listened to their podcast, I listened to their videos, and I've been over 4 months. I've been digesting this individual. Why? I want to learn how they think. I want to learn what are the clues that they're going to give, and what's the patterns that they live their life by. What code do they live their life by? What are the things that they do? In that process, though, I'm also taking bits and pieces and applying it to my life. What are the things that I can take in and do? What can I shift gears? How can I make this more me? Because what annoys me more than anything is when I see people learn something and they become a robot doing exactly what the person does. And yeah, you may get success, but you are not being you, that uniqueness to who you are, the individuality of who you truly are. And that's something that when I look at being in the teachings and the works that I do, my online classes, my conscious university, all the stuff that I do, I want you to be you, that soul, the essence that doesn't exist anywhere else in the entire multiverse. That being is who I truly want you to express into this world. So it's great to learn things, but make it you, knowing versus owning. There's a lot of people do this with my work. They've read my book and they're like, okay, I know how he thinks. Yep, Dr. Vic's going to talk like this. And they do this. And I go, great, you know how I talk. That's perfect. But what is your realm? What is your vibe? What is your unique imprint? How do you own the material? And so for me, now, instead of reading 60, 80, 100 books a year, what I do is I don't care if I read one book a year. I don't care. I will study that material inside and out. I will implement it into my life, start to build a pattern, use the law of consistency, neuroscience and neuroplasticity and how that all works, how to build it to become a habit. So this is why I'm against learning so much so quick, because it takes, on average, the newest research out there in neurology states that it takes 80 days to make a habit now. I was taught in the old studies that were done with astronauts that it took about 25 to 28 days to create a habit, for the brain to adapt to a habit. But since our society has become so much more stressed out and so much more on demand, and we're so much more busy, it's taking longer for things to stick. Our attention span, as more and more as your attention span shrinks, more and more, it's going to be harder for you to adapt or to neurologically create a new habit. I mean, some research I was reading, I think the attention span now is 8 seconds, which I find that just to be crazy. 8 seconds. And it's only going to get shorter. As the world speeds up faster and faster, internet, phones, the whole 9 yards, it's only going to get shorter. So the key thing is, This whole episode is not to be a rant. This whole episode is to really help empower you more to learn something, but own it, master it. I was hearing some research about when people attend a workshop or a conference, they get all wild up. They're all red. They're all taking on the world. They have tears running down their eyes. I mean, it's this whole story. I say this because I was one of them. And what ends up happening is, on average, now don't quote me 100% because it's been a while since I've heard this, but on average, within the first month of someone leaving the conference, they don't remember 90% of the material. After 2 months, I think it's 95%. After 3 months, it goes up to 98. So basically, if there's over 1,000 people there, only 20 people are going to remember the material, which is about 2% that are, and I even think it's less. I think it's less than 1% who are actually going to take that material and run with it and change their life. Own it instead of knowing it. I used to be a seminar junkie when I was in chiropractic school. I learned so many different things, so many different techniques, all these different aspects. And I remember one day I was told, when are you going to become a master of something instead of just being a jack of all trades? And I was like, great question. I was like, well, I'm still trying to figure that out. And like, well, you're getting closer to the end of school. Don't you think you should be mastering something? And actually, it took me a few more years before I actually said, you know what? I know exactly what I'm going to master. I know exactly what I'm going to do when I'm in my chiropractic office. And now, 8 years out, I know exactly what I do because this is what I do. I don't want to do anything else. I have friends that recommend things to me and all this, the newest cutting edge and this and that. And I say, that's great, but this is what I'm doing because it's what matters to me. It's what I'm excited about. It's what I'm passionate about. And also I know I'm solving a huge problem. And if I'm not solving a huge problem, something that's going to be way bigger than me and affect lifetimes to come, it's not worth my interest. And so that's the key. And so owning, how am I going to be that authority figure when it comes to wellness, pediatric care, and so forth in my area? Well, it's what I do. I focus. All my my continuing education for the last 3.5 years has been pediatrics, pregnancy, prenatal, fertility, you name it. All my nutrition studies have related to that. All my neurology studies have related to that. And so it's all the stuff that I do. I'm owning this material. I'm making it me, expressing in the way that I like to express it. And at the same token, I'm owning the stuff, not just knowing it. And I do this in my coaching, my online consciousness groups and all that with my coaching that I do and my online programs is I'm very simplistic. I have a certain way of how I do things. I know this material and I own it because I live it. It's not something I'm telling you that I'm not congruent with. This is what I do. And so when it comes to you, here's a little criteria. Take something, study it, study the person, study every avenue of what they can put out there, all their content, if they have a podcast, if they have a book, if they have workshops, they have a conference. Take time, spend 3 months, 6 months, a year studying them. Become a master of what they do. Own it, and then move on. Imagine, I always say, if you just took 5 books a year, and whoever the author is, hence, I know one great book to recommend called Rediscover Your Greatness. I think you'll love the author. And he's coming out with another book in July 2019. And for those who don't know what I'm talking about, that's me. But long story short, it's one of those things that, study them, really absorb their content, get to know their ways, and then start taking the bits and pieces that you like and implement it into your life and keep doing it until it becomes a habit. Till it becomes second nature, until you don't have to think anymore. Then from there, you can truly transform your life in a way to where you're going to start growing and expanding instead of just learning new content and then forgetting it over a period of time. Because the truth be told, your mind can only handle so much. And some people say when you learn something new, something has to go. I don't know how true that is, but what I've learned is that you want to keep reinforcing things until it gets into that long-term memory. And heck, if you want to go even farther, the subconscious mind. And from that level, that's when you make it you. That's when you own this stuff. And that's when you really create transformation in your life on whatever aspect of what you're working on. So take time with this. Be patient. Remember, 80 days to change a habit now. That's the best neuroscience out there right now. So it's going to take time. You got to we're getting away from the quick fixes in life, I'm hoping. I know in healthcare, I haven't seen it yet, but I know when it comes to some of the business stuff that I hear and listen to, the message is you got to keep putting your time into things, keep putting the sweat equity, you just got to keep grinding. Eventually you're going to get there. And my whole coaching program and all my online classes that I teach, this is something that I do. I teach and share how we throw away time. Time is not an essence. What we focus on is other factors that matter that are going to truly help you take you to that level. Because it doesn't matter how long it takes. The matter is just long as you get there. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. Please, if you like the podcast, please give us some stars on iTunes. Let people know what you think. Share it. Share this on Facebook and your social media outlets. This gets the message out and really helps expand our message and our reach of what we're trying to create here at the Mindful Experiment. So I want to thank you guys. This is Dr. Vic from the Mindful Experiment. Until next time, keep rocking and rolling. Thank you for listening to the podcast. For past shows, please visit www.empoweryourreality.com. I hope this show inspired you and added to your life to help you on the journey to rediscover who you really are. To connect with us on Facebook, please visit www.facebook.com/Dr. Vic Manzo. Check us out on Twitter. The handle is Dr. Vic21. Follow us on Instagram, www.instagram.com/Dr. Vic Manzo. If you were inspired by the podcast, pay it forward inspired by sharing it with someone who you know can benefit from it. Thank you again for listening to the Mindful Experiment podcast, sharing paths to help you rediscover your infinite potential.